Good morning. My name is Alex Langer, and I'm President and CEO of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. Sierra Madre is a precious metals producer. We currently have one production asset called the Guitarra Silver and Gold Mine. We started commercial production there on January 1st of 2025, and we've been actively pushing that project forward. We've announced a couple big increases that we'll be doing here in 2026 and 2027. We are also doing a large exploration program towards the second half of this year. And most recently, we announced the acquisition of the fully permitted past producing Del Toro silver mine from First Majestic. It was a transaction that we announced at the end of 2025, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So we are a production company. We're really focused on exploration as well as expansion. So with that, I'll start to get into the story. The Sierra Madre, as you can see here, that's a La Guitarra silver and gold mine. We're located about 2.5 hours outside of Mexico City. So in terms of location, it's excellent. It's a very safe area. There's a toll road all the way to the project. There's power, there's water, and there's about 30,000 people that live within the project boundary. So a lot of employment opportunities. We are the largest employer in the area. We're up to about 350 people at any time now. So it's been a huge boon to the economy. It's been quite amazing. A bit of a honeymoon period for sure, but it's gone very, very well. Forward-looking statements, I've already made a few, and I'll continue to make a number more. So please feel free to review this on our website at any time. As I mentioned, the location is excellent. We are located in the state capital of Mexico City. As you can see here, Ciudad de Mexico, city of close to 30 million people. And again, it's about a 2.5 hour drive to La Guitarra. We go through Toluca. Toluca is also another large city, about 1.5 million people. So what's nice about this is in terms of what we need to have at site in terms of mining, we can actually get it within a day from Toluca. So a lot of times you'd have to have 3 or 4 times backup of everything. We don't. We have critical items at site, and then if we need things, we can go to Toluca, we can go to Mexico City, go up to Guitarra. So we have a lot of optionality there, which keeps our inventory costs quite a bit lower. So we did announce full commercial production on January 1st of 2025. Every quarter, we've increased our revenues, which is great. In quarter three, we produced just over 150,000 ounces of silver equivalent. We expect that number to continue to climb over the next couple quarters. We're still catching up on development. When we started production, we literally did that on a shoestring. We did test mining, as we called it, in the summer of 2024. We started at 250 tons per day, went to 325, 450, and then eventual commercial production, which is 500 tons per day on January 1st. So things have gone well. We're making money, but we're going to continue to see those revenues really increase as we get into the better grades, as we catch up on development. So that's happening. I'd say we're about a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half away from that, but you're still going to see, I expect improved revenues, especially with the price of silver and gold. This is amazing. When we originally decided to turn on the project, we'd actually bought La Guitarra as an exploration play, which I'll get into in a little bit. But as soon as silver hit $24, we're like, my goodness, we got to get this thing into production. So we focused all our attention from exploration to production, and I think it was a good choice. So we were able to prove that pretty quickly. We announced production that would take us 2 years, and we did it about 11 months later. And so we've been generating revenues now for well over a year and a half, and those revenues are going to continue to climb, especially with today's gold and silver prices. It is truly amazing. Concurrently, what's going to allow us to expand this project is a private placement we did in the summer of 2025. We raised $19.5 million. With that, we announced some pretty big expansion plans to increase the amount of ounces that we'll be producing. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. All right. As I mentioned, management-wise, technically everything we're doing on the exploration and production side is led by Greg Liller. Greg is an exploration geologist. However, he's ran and operated numerous mines in Mexico. He's actually now had 8 projects become mines, which is truly incredible. Do it once or twice, you'll be lucky. To do it 8 times, there's something special there. He's had some big M&A successes with Gavin Gold, including Genco as well. Genco actually ran and operated the La Guitarra mine through 2003 through 2007. So Greg and his team are the ones that modernized the facility. They brought it from 100 tons per day up to 500. Eventually, that project was sold to First Majestic, and I truly believe that First Majestic wouldn't have sold this project to anybody except Greg and the technical team, which is great. So it's worked out really, really well. They First Majestic is by far our largest shareholder, and I can get into that in a little bit. Behind Greg, the other really important person is Luis Saenz. Luis is a Mexican national, but he's trained in the U.S. Previously to joining La Guitarra, he had actually worked with Genco with Greg at La Guitarra for about 7 years, but then he went on to become subdirector of mining at Frisco, which is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar Mexican conglomerate. So he had 14 different projects he was in charge of, and he's brought in a full Mexican team, and they're amazing. So they're at site. So everything we're doing, we're not relying on contractors. We're all doing it in-house, and it's thanks to Luis and Greg. Outside of myself, my CFO and secretary, everyone's based in Mexico. Outside of Greg, who's based in Tucson, but is in Mexico at least 9 months a year, I would say. So really low overhead in terms of some other companies, and really focus on production, focus on profitability. I myself, I come from a capital markets background, started at Canaccord. I left there in 2009 and have founded a few companies and, taken on a couple directorships here and there. But this one I started 7 years ago when I was working with Millennial Lithium. That was sold for just over $450 million to Lithium Americas. And I'm also a founder and director of a company called Lift Power, which has some exciting lithium assets in Canada. One of the person I really want to touch on is Alejandro Carveo. Alejandro is not only a director, he's also a country manager. He handles everything in-house in terms of our accounting, legal, permitting, union work, everything like that. So Alejandro comes from a really well-known Mexican mining family, and he runs our operations in our offices in Chihuahua. So La Guitarra mine, at least the location, it's a full district. The La Guitarra district, which encompasses about 25,000 hectares. It's very expensive. It's one of the largest mining concessions that I've seen in Mexico. It costs about $1 million US a year just to hold the property. Usually what would happen is a project like this, I think we've counted 18 kind of major former mines within the project area. It would be broken up in a down cycle. When silver was at, $10, $11, this would be broken up and a junior would just kept a little bit of this project. But since it was held by First Majestic, they were able to, keep the whole project together, even during the downturn. So we're quite fortunate. We're a junior that has literally a whole district. The La Guitarra district is the third largest and most prolific producer of silver and gold in Mexico. It's been in production since the 1600s. Really, really significant. Some of the bigger mines are Mina de Agua and El Rincon, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But we're currently mining from La Guitarra, as well as Coloso and Nazareno. Those are two mines that we turned on mid last year. What's great about Coloso is it's quite a bit higher grade than La Guitarra. And so we're still working on development, both at Nazareno and Coloso, but we're mining from all three centers. And then we're taking that to our La Guitarra mill and processing center. And we will be exploring the east area, which will be quite exciting. This is our current resource. When we acquired the project from First Majestic, this is the first thing we did. In essence, there has been about 236,000 meters of drilling, mainly in the west area. We were able to come up with a resource of just under 50 million ounces of silver. That's in all categories. Gives us a great start, but at 500 tons per day, that's a lot of years of mining. So with this resource in place and the extra capital we raised, we are going to be expanding quite quickly. So we have kind of two big expansions. The first one is happening this year. We've already started the work on that. We're going to be moving from 500 tons per day up to 750, 800 tons per day by Q2 of 2026. We'll have news on that in the next little while, but everything seems to be on track there. It's kind of a three-pronged expansion. The big one is the construction of a new paste fill and thickener plant. You never want to fall behind on your tailing space and tailings capacity. So what we're going to be doing there is starting to put some of that material underground as we increase from 500 to 750, 800. The other thing is an additional ball mill. There was a fourth ball mill. It didn't work. We've sold that. So there's space and there's power available for it. We've already purchased it. It's currently in Chihuahua getting refurbished, and hopefully we'll be arriving at site in the not too distant future. And then also adding a secondary cone crusher. So we've had some news on that. It's being installed as we speak. I think we're kind of ahead of schedule there. But those three key materials will allow us to move up to 750, 800. And again, I think we're on track there for Q2 2026. The full expansion for that is only about $3.5 million US. So again, we have more than enough capital to cover that. Phase 2 expansion will be a little bit more, I guess we'll take a little bit more. It's about $5 million US, but again, not a huge amount of capital needed to do that. To go from the 750, 800 to 12 to 1500, the big thing will be to construct our fully permitted 5.8 million tons tailings facility. It is a dry stack facility. It's permitted. It's just expensive. It's about 10 million US over 3.5 years to get that operational. So what we're doing is we're going to be building out the first little bit as we can, and then doing the rest out of OPEX. So that's going to be key. Additionally, we'll add a secondary jaw crusher. Again, we're doing up drawings for that right now. It's not a huge issue. New jaw crusher is probably about $500,000 to $2 million. And then again, we will replace another smaller ball mill with a much larger ball mill, and that will get us to 12 to 1500 tons per day. So we're pretty confident we'll be able to do that. Not a huge capital outlay, and that'll allow us to, again, hopefully increase revenues and increase the amount of silver that we'll be producing. I'm just going to go back one slide just to go into what our cash costs and everything look like. So our revenues for quarter 3 were 5.5 million. Revenues for quarter 2, 5.4. Quarter 1 was 4.8. You'll see our ASIC here. That's our all-in sustaining cost. It's way too high. It's about $34. It was lower when we started. The reason why it's gone up, a couple of reasons. One is we've been renting a lot of equipment, but we've been purchasing that. So we'll have news on how much we've purchased, but we've purchased millions of dollars of equipment. When we started production, we had a large rental fleet, and we're pretty much converted, I would say about 95% of that to our own. So you're going to see those costs come down pretty quickly. And then again, it's at development. So the development that we're doing at Nazareno, at Colosso, bringing 2 mines online, is all located within that ASIC. So as those mines get operational, as we get into the higher grades, you're going to see those numbers come down. Analysts have us around $22 ASIC, which would be great. I'm going to see, I think our costs over the next couple quarters will be, similar to what they've been. At today's prices, that's great, but you never know what's going to happen with the price of silver. So we're going to get those down, and we'll get them down as we increase throughput as well. So they are high, but we are making money. But in the future, I really want to get those numbers down, and that's what we're really focused on. So we really want to be quite profitable, not too concerned about the amount of ounces we're producing. Major concern for us is profitability. This is the whole project on a geological scale, and I know you're going to really get into this with Greg on the next conversation, so I won't go too crazy, but this is why we purchased the project. We truly feel it's the largest undeveloped silver district in all of Mexico. Current resources are these green areas. Again, we're mining from Guitarra, Colosso, and Nazareno, but it's this east district that is really, truly quite exciting. If we zoom in a little bit, if you look here, it's kind of the East District, and we zoom in a bit more, you're going to start to see what we have. We've now identified close to 60 kilometers of vein material at surface. That's what these red lines. These little black dots are all former mines or former workings within the area. I think there's about 500 of them within the East District. What's kind of exciting really is this Mina de Agua and El Rincon and a few of these other bigger mines. Mina de Agua, when it shut down, had over 10,000 workers. This one shut down in 1910. They got a little bit too deep. It flooded. They built a couple sub-levels. Those flooded again right after. So nothing's been done there since about 1911. And then the other one is El Rincon. El Rincon was the last mine in production within the East District. That was in production for about 30 years, shut down in 1937. However, the head grade at El Rincon was 6.5 grams gold and 850 grams silver at 100 tons per day. So those are some of the highest grades I've ever seen. This is the prize. This is why we purchased La Guitarra. So we'll be doing a 20 to 25,000 meter drilling program within the East District starting in the second half of this year. So we're pretty excited. We're just building up drill targets right now. We're sampling, we're mapping, we're getting ready for that big exploration program. It'll be 20 holes, and then with assays, we have our own assay lab, so assay turnaround time will be quickly for us internally. We'll do another 40 holes, and then we'll do 80 holes, and we'll see where we're at. But we're pretty excited. This is fully funded. And that's out of the capital we raised in the summer, the 19.5 million. As West District, there's more exploration here. Greg will get into that. I'm not a geologist, so we'll let him get into the exciting part on the West District. We do have a loan with First Majestic. This allowed us to get into production. It was $5 million US. We'll take care of that in the not too distant future here, but it doesn't expire or doesn't mature until May of 2027. In essence, it's 15%. There was no warrants. They've been incredible partners for us. It was great that they provided us with this loan. Obviously, it's worked out really well for us, and we'll pay that back hopefully relatively soon. Tepic is another project that we do have. We're not focused on that right now, especially the acquisition of Del Toro, which I'll get into in a little bit. But Tepic is another project. It's located in the western side of Nayarit. And hopefully towards the end of the year, we'll have some news on what we're going to plan to do there. So I'll skip over that. And let me quickly get into the share structure. This is going to change, obviously, with the updated acquisition of Del Toro. But in essence, before this transaction, First Majestic owned 27.7% of us. Institution, that went quite a bit higher. The lead order in the last round of financing was Franklin Templeton. They've been, incredible. They saw the opportunity for us to increase production and also drill in the East District. So they came in and led that financing. Eric Sprott and the Commodity Capital out of Europe also maintained their percentages at 8%. Management founders, before this last round, we still owned about 20%, including this last round. I've invested $2 million myself personally into the company. One of the largest shareholders. I truly believe in what we're doing. We have options and warrants out. That share outstanding number is actually closer to 195 now. So a lot of those will be an exercise building up our cash position. And with that, it probably makes sense to chat about the Del Toro acquisition. So I truly believe there's an opportunity to build a mid-tier silver company. So we've been looking at a lot of different projects. We've done many site visits. Del Toro, we'd known for a long time, obviously, even from when we had done the acquisition originally with First Majestic for La Guitarra. Now, we had a lot of history at La Guitarra, so it made a lot of sense for us. But Del Toro was an area that where a lot of our, Mexican management team had worked in the area. It's a beautiful, spectacular mine, something we had always had our eye on. Fast forward until, we had everything at La Guitarra up and running. We felt comfortable that it would be time to make another acquisition and went back to First Majestic. And yeah, they were open to selling it to us. They saw kind of the success we had at La Guitarra and the ability that was shown to increase production and get into production pretty quickly that, yeah, they were open to it. Obviously some negotiation, but we're truly, truly excited. So Del Toro, it's a big mine. It's 3,000 tons per day. It's in area, it's in Zacatecas, but it's not too far away from Durango. It's about an hour and 45-minute drive. There is a much closer town there as well. So we're looking for these projects that are in safe jurisdictions that have really big exploration upside and quick to production. So it's fully permitted, big mill, big mine. It is beautiful. Like I say, La Guitarra is a 1998 Ford diesel, which is running great and will continue to run. But the Del Toro mine is a Cadillac. It truly is pretty special. So it's got about 19 million ounces in reserves. That's in all categories and historic. Silver equivalent. It's quite high grade. When you add in the lead, silver, zinc, it's close to 400 grams. So really nice grade. What our original plan to do there at Del Toro is to explore. We're in CRD country there. There's a bunch of big CRD projects surrounding us. Pan Americans, Colorado mine, Grupo Mexico surrounds us. There's some really huge potential within that area. And that's really why we purchased Del Toro. We love the production scenario. It is big, but it's the exploration upside that we see around it with the CRDs that are poking their head out surface. So the original plan here is to explore. We want to, spend close to about $10 to $15 million on exploration at Del Toro, come up with a big resource, and then turn it on. Having said that, with the price of silver doing what it's doing, there is an opportunity to turn it on if we do make that decision. We feel internally there is a possibility to turn that on within a year and start to generate cash flows. Now, we wouldn't go at 3,000 tons per day, obviously. We would look at something much, much smaller. Can't say too much on that right now because we don't have the project. There is still quite a bit of work we need to do. We can close the capital raise, $57.5 million. Of that, $20 million US will go straight to First Majestic in terms of the purchase price. Obviously, there's fees on top of that. We also have to do Mexican antitrust. We have to get shareholder approval, so it's still a number of months away. So once we get to site, again, once we have control of the site, hopefully April-ish is kind of my goal. Then we'll be able to get to site, truly put together a plan on what we want to do, and then we'll be able to share that with the market. But the opportunity for us to acquire a mine of this quality, we're really excited. It's a pretty special project. We paid $30 million US upfront, 20 in cash, 10 in shares of First Majestic. That was at $1.30. And then we do have some more milestone payments, one due in 18 months, and then another in 4 or 5 years if we're able to hit some pretty big milestones. I think that's kind of it. So if you had any questions, Jasper, we can go through that now.
Let's jump into it. So first of all, could you give some more color on yourself, and also why you choose to join, and when also you join Sierra Madre?
Yeah, so I guess myself, again, capital markets. I'm not a geologist or technical by any means, but when I started at Canaccord, I was quite fortunate. We did the IPOs for Endeavor Silver, for Fortuna Silver. So I got really comfortable with silver, got really comfortable with Mexico as well. And when I was, I was actually just looking for investments about 7 years ago. I had looked at companies that could grow through acquisitions, companies that could grow through ounces in the ground and go through production with minimizing dilution. It's something I really liked. Like we did what Endeavor Silver at 10 cents and, eventually went up to 12. I think it's $17 now. Like, so you see these opportunities and they grew through acquisition. They grew through production. And I wanted to build something similar. I looked for something similar, couldn't find it. If I wanted a bit of silver, it was Pan American, but I just kind of built it outside of my desk. Silver wasn't trading very high, but I felt the long-term thematic of what was happening, what could happen, made a lot of sense. So I rounded up Greg and a couple other partners, and yeah, we were able to acquire the Tepic project. Things were going really well. And then fast forward, we had the opportunity to acquire La Guitarra, and that really transformed the company, allowing us to get into production and things like that. So that's what we're trying to build. I really feel there's an opportunity to build a mid-tier silver company. Longer term, I'd love to have 8 to 10 million ounces silver equivalent, under one roof, plus a few 100 million ounces of silver through a variety of projects in Mexico. And, with Sierra Madre and Del Toro, we're getting pretty close. So it's pretty exciting opportunity. So I started this company 7 years alongside of my desk. 5 years later, incorporated, built out the team, purchased Tepic, and then we purchased La Guitarra, and now we purchased Del Toro. So M&A has been a big part of it, and hopefully we continue to be a part of that as well.
How many shares? How many shares do you hold? Both common shares and also incentive units, if you separate that, and how important is it to your net worth?
Oh, it's a lot of it. So I think you look up the numbers, but it's over 5 million shares plus probably another 1.5 million in incentive options, just options. We don't have RSUs or DSUs or anything like that. So close to 7 million shares, I would say, with my family and myself. So that's it's a big chunk of the net worth for sure. So I'm highly, highly invested within the company, and Greg as well. Greg's probably put in 1.5 million. So he owns close to 4 million shares as well. And, it'd be a big chunk of his net worth too.
How would you say that Sierra Madre stands out if you compare it to other junior silver and gold producers?
Yeah, a couple things with that. Definitely, I think the ability to see us grow through producing more ounces, more profitability for a low capex and capital we've already raised is key. So, when La Guitarra was operational, it was producing 1 million to 1.5 million ounces a year, 500 tons per day. So we're able to triple that. That's a nice number. Obviously, depends where we're mining from. Won't be producing as many ounces of silver, but we'll be very, very profitable. And adding on Del Toro during its peak was producing over 4 million ounces of silver. So I don't think there's too many juniors where you can see it going from 1 million ounce throughput to much, much more with the projects they already have that are fully permitted as well, and the capital to be able to do so. And then the big thing is the exploration upside. We truly feel, as I mentioned, La Guitarra is the largest undeveloped silver district in Mexico, and then the exploration upside and the CRD potential at Del Toro. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. I think minimizing downside risk with the fact that we really don't need capital. We're profitable. We're going to continue to be profitable. And as we produce more ounces, revenues will go up. So I think sets us apart. True exploration and production team on site, low overhead, a clear vision of where we want to get to. So I think, with those things, we've been relatively quiet as well. We're not out there, marketing too much. We've started to do a little bit more. Obviously, the silver market's been crazy. We caught a little bit of that, but I think as we just move ourselves up in terms of production ounces and in a silver market, it's incredible type of valuations you can get. So we'll get there. We'll catch up eventually, and we'll just be executing kind of from now until then.
Do you have any sense of what are the two analysts that cover you? What do they set for PNAV? And obviously it changed with prices, but
it changes with prices. Like they have low prices, I think like $40, but one of them has us targeted at $3 a share, the other one at $2.75, and every couple of weeks they've been increasing their guidance on that, and they have some huge amount of conservatism within those numbers, which is great, which is where we want to be. So if anybody wants those, we can send them forward, or you can ask via Assay or Beacon. we can pass along the reports for sure. And I expect to get some more analysts as well. This round, last round was led by Beacon, but we also had Bank of Montreal, BMO, as well as Canaccord again as part of the financing. So hopefully we'll work on getting some more analyst coverage as well. It's tough. So I can't talk about, let's say, our expected numbers and production numbers and things like that kind of roundabout because we don't have a PA. We don't have a feasibility. That's one thing when we went to production at La Guitarra is we knew our costs inside and out. The mine was in production up in 2018. We knew our energy costs, we knew our manpower costs. Definitive feasibility or bankable feasibility, whatever it might be, is still a guesstimate. We knew our costs inside and out. So that's why we're very comfortable to push forward, all with internal numbers, but then you can't really share that with the market. So it's a little tricky. Maybe down the road, it's something we could do, feasibility just to start giving guidance. Leave that with us in the time being. But for what we're doing right now, it just made sense, allowed us to move quicker, and again, saved a lot of money. Feasibility or definitive feasibility, you're looking at a few $100,000 at least. And at the time, capital was quite expensive. So we wanted to keep things as low as possible, and it's worked out well. So we'll see what we do at Del Toro. But again, we understand our costs in Mexico. We understand the cost of equipment. We understand development costs. So, as long as we trust our numbers and they continue to perform well, then, I don't foresee us doing a feasibility at Del Toro either. If and when we decide to go into production.
So you probably won't put out at least firm guidance this year.
No, I doubt it. Now there are some ways within the NI 43-101 once you're in production that you can do that. So we'll work through that right now. But honestly, we've just had our heads down trying to get these expansions put into place, working on the exploration side, and then we'll see kind of where we'll end up. But at these prices, again, could never have imagined to be honest, but pretty happy. So things should work out quite well.
What is the current financial position?
Yeah, well, it's good. We're making money. We just raised $57.5 million. Of that, $2.5 million goes to fees, and then $20 million to First Majestic. So that brought in another $20 to $22 million into what we already had. If you looked at last quarter, we were 15, 16 million. Plus we're profitable. Plus we're seeing a lot of warrants coming in as well, which is another 10 million. So our year-end financials will be out in a little bit, but you can start to add those together to give yourself a rough idea of where we're sitting.
And so you're cash flow positive, free cash flow positive.
Yeah.
So let's move into La Guitarra. So I guess, could you explain more? So currently you're at 500 tons per day, roughly. Q3 was a little bit lower, but I guess you should be when you Q4 and Q1 around 500 tons per day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually a little bit more than 500 tons per day. It's like 524. But when you take into Christmas, you shut down for, a week to 10 days. You're doing maintenance and things like that. So that's why we say it's 500. And we did have a lot of, I guess, a big issue in Q3 was too much water. Rainy season started early and ended late. So we actually lost quite a bit of production. We're on the grid, which is great, which means our energy costs are low. However, when the power goes out, it only rains for 2 hours, but it'll knock over a tree, and then the power lines are down for 6-7 hours, and we don't have power outside. So we are getting some new generators. Those will be installed before the next rainy season, which will be April, May. So that was another reason why our numbers weren't great, just because of power outage and things like that. So once we have these generators up and running, then that'll diminish the risk of downtime. You still have downtime. We'll have downtime again while we're doing some expansion, as you're putting in the new cone crusher and moving the conveyor belts. It could be a week there, here and there, but again, at these prices, it's okay. Now's the time to do it for sure.
When do you expect to have a run rate of, call it, 700, 750 tons per day? And what are you adding that makes it? Is it just the ball mill, or what else are you adding to?
Yeah, so I want to do that again. So in terms of the equipment for processing, we're adding a ball mill and a new cone crusher. So the cone crusher is almost ready. I was there in December and it was being installed. The ball mill is being refurbished as we speak in Chihuahua. So a bit of work. It was a used one. Again, saving costs everywhere we can. And in terms of mining, everything becomes used within 4 months anyway. So, might as well save. You can get equipment for 10, 20% on the dollar. So we're able to do that. Ball mill came from the US. And those are the two main things just to increase throughput. Now, the big thing we can never forget is going to be that tailing space. So we have about, just under 2 years of tailing space currently in a wet facility. That's what we're using right now. And that would be at 500 tons per day. So if we're increasing the throughput, we want to make sure we're never falling behind on that. And that's where this paste backfill plant comes in. So paste backfill will let us divert anywhere between 300 to 700 tons per day into the underground. There's a bunch of old stopes, a bunch of old workings. It's not really a huge elevation change. It's about 11 meters until we would go down. So cost of pumping isn't huge. But again, it's going to save that tailing space. So that's being manufactured in Toluca, that town just outside of where we're located. The civil works are being added right now in terms of moving the area to put the paste backfill. And that's really the big caveat is, we could increase probably quicker, but then where do you put the tailing space? So we're just working through that right now. And there'll be news on hopefully not too distant future on what that's going to look like in the short term. Having said that, we did announce last week that we had purchased a large piece of land, almost the exact same size as our tailing space, adjacent to our tailings. So we're going to go through a permitting process there to see if we can expand our current facility, which would, again, delay the onset of the much larger facility and gives us a bunch more optionality in terms of tailing space. So that was a pretty important purchase. There's no guarantee we'll be able to get a permit for it, but we're working through that right now, and hopefully that'll we'll have some information on that in the next 5-6 months.
Is that where you optimally would like to have the 5.8 million, dry stack? No,
5.8, it's on our own land. That's ready to go. It's just, it's not ready to go. You have to do all the work for it. It's just expensive. Like to build that whole thing out is $10 million US, and you just want to wait on that. So that's going to allow us to do the second expansion. We're going to start construction on that no matter what after the rainy season next year, which should hopefully be October. Once the civil work starts there, you got to put down the liners, like a third of that capex, about 1.7 million US is just on the first bit of liners. These, large plastic liners that keep everything intact and within themselves. So if it's a rainy season, they'll just fill up with water and pump it out. So we're just going to wait till dry season starts, have the civil work going, and that'll be hopefully operational by September 2027 as we move into 12 to 1,500 tons per day. So that's a big cost, big expansion. But again, if we're able to, increase the amount of tailings we have in our wet facility, why not use that at the same time, or just keeps the tailings things running longer, which is important.
But with the new facility, you should have, and that with the paste backfill plant, you should have at least 10 years.
Oh yeah,
even
it's a huge
more
amount.
Than that.
Yeah. We're fine.
Sure,
yeah, absolutely.
So, by at least some time in Q2, you should be at 750 tons per day. Do you have to do a lot of development to double that in a year, essentially?
A lot. So that's a lot of it, right? So this mine had never been producing more than 500 tons per day. But if you take a look, like we were producing 500 tons per day just from Guitarra alone. So we're comfortable with that. Colosso is where First Majestic was producing from, only Colosso, and they were doing 500 tons per day alone. And then now with Nazareno online, we're pretty confident we'll be able to get 200 to 500 tons per day from Nazareno. And Nazareno is actually really wide widths. They're about average 6 to 7 meters. So each blast is going to give you quite a bit more. And there is another area called Los Angeles, which Greg will get into. It's about 30 million ounces, which isn't in any resource historically, which was an open pit idea he had. But we have an idea to get that from the underground. It's lower grade, but really wide widths, up to 30 meters. So we can see kind of a long hole scenario where we'd be able to blast that and process it very, very inexpensively. So again, development work would be needed, but production costs would be low. So again, focus on profitability. So I really don't see a huge issue of getting the material out of the ground. But you're right, development is important. Moving forward, once we're fully caught up, I would expect a third of all our costs to be from development.
What do you think your production run rate will be at? Do you have any ballpark range that you can give for both for 700, 750, and also when you double that in a year?
Yeah, 750, 800, it's tough because historically this mine was more of a silver mine. It's kind of 60-40. Silver gold was a term of the value. While we've been in production, gold ran way before silver ran. So it was about 55 gold, 45 silver. We flipped that over again. The last few months, it's kind of been like 55 silver, 45 gold. So, we're probably going to have to start talking about, gold and silver production separately. But for the time being, we can just talk it as silver equivalent. At 750, 800 tons per day, we should be at, 1.5-ish number, round number equivalent. At that point, at a run rate, obviously on the high end. It also depends on what area we're mining from. Longer term, depending on the gold price, at 12 to 1,500 tons per day, we should be anywhere around 2.5 maybe up to 3. So that's kind of the I guess a ballpark of where we could get to at La Guitarra at 1,500 tons per day, 2.5 to 3, and that's probably the maximum size. To be honest, I don't think you could go much past that, just in terms of the footprint, just in terms of the amount of material we'd be moving. For us, that's a huge number, but for a company like First Majestic, wouldn't move the needle too much. So one of the reasons why I think they sold La Guitarra to us is, again, they're looking for a much bigger project, but for us, it's pretty meaningful.
And if we assume, if we just look at the current resource, what is the mine life when you get up to 1,500 tons per day?
Close to 50 million ounces. You can kind of work backwards there. If we're able to do 2 to 3 a year, it's quite a while. And that doesn't include the East District. So, I don't stop harping on it. It is pretty big. We have an opportunity there to come up with some pretty special numbers, some big intercepts, and some, large tonnage numbers. So if we find what I think we could find, and this was the First Majestic did as well, and we had news on that last week, is they purchased a piece of land there. It was going to be a production center for them. It's actually fully permitted. For us, we doubled that land size as well, and it's going to be a staging area for exploration. But if we find something much larger, it would probably be a really good spot where we could build a much larger mill. So there could be a scenario there where we're building another 2 to 3,000 ton per day facility on the other side in the East District just to process that material. Now that's blue sky. That's possible if everything worked out well. But if not, maybe we only find a bit, but it's that super high grade material. It's only 7 kilometers away. So you could truck that, 2 to 3, 400 tons per day of 6.5 gram gold and 850 grams silver material added to the mix could increase revenues and the amount of metal produced pretty quickly.
Excellent. And in the presentation, you mentioned that, the next couple of quarters probably will be around that $30 an ounce, all-in sustaining cost per silver equivalent ounce. What do you think when you get up to, call it second half of this year, late this year, and also especially also when you get when you get up to 1,500 tons per day, where do you think you will be at long term?
Yeah. So analysts have us around 22. I think that's fair. I'd like to beat that. Let's put it that way. Having said that, it's interesting. Costs haven't really gone up. Like manpower costs have gone up a little bit, salaries, but oil and gas, like energy costs, they haven't moved at all. And if you look at, some of the big players, big mining companies, and Nico, and all these companies, make a lot of money. I expect energy costs to go up. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of years. But for the time being, it's, those numbers are realistic that I gave. But I think energy costs will go up.
And what other sort of capital requirements do you have for La Guitarra, excluding exploration? Or you can include that if you want to. That's not in the ISK.
Oh, capex numbers. So we have 3.5 million for expansion stage 1. That's to get to 750, 800, and then 5 million US for expansion 2. That's to get up to 12 to 1,500, and then 3.5 million US for the first 20 to 25,000 meters of drilling. And that's kind of what we have. And then ongoing, you would have the tailings expansion a bit further. But again, that'll be out of OPEX. And it's not a huge number, another 6.5 million, but that's over 6-7 years. So $1 million a year on that. We purchased pretty much all the equipment. We'll need a bit more equipment, obviously, as we increase. We have enough now to go 750, 800. We purchased all that. And now to go to the next level, maybe another 2 to 3 million US in equipment. So again, not huge numbers we're talking about.
So thank you for being here today, Greg.
Oh, my pleasure, Jasper.
Before we get into La Guitarra and also a little bit Del Toro, could you tell us about yourself and about your career?
Well, been in the business more years than I want to remember. But I've been working in Mexico since '93. Mexico's been good to me. Managed to put Uvia into production, took Ocampo into production. Ocampo is really 2 mines, a big 12,000 ton a day open pit and a 1,200 ton a day underground. Managed that one from the first drill hole in the district up through the first gold pour. So then at the same time we were doing Ocampo, we formed another company, Mex Gold, and that one we took over a El Cubo mine, which was basically almost in bankruptcy. So we got a good deal on it, $14 million. When we took it over, it was making about 2,000 ounces of gold equivalent a month. After running the thing for about 2.5 years, I had it up to 7,000 ounces a month, which was totally unsustainable. And I told them so. There, we had an open pit area that I had drilled out that had to be developed in order to sustain that. But anyway, Gammon Lake, which was Ocampo, became Orica, merged with Mexgold, which was a sister company, really. Same board members, essentially. But they ran El Cubo up until 2012 and sold it to Endeavor for $250 million. Soon thereafter, Ocampo was sold for $750 million. So that was a pretty good return on investment, I think, on that one. After I left Gammon, I went to work for Genco. Actually, I intended on retiring. That was my first retirement because I cashed out on my share and option package, which gave me enough money that I didn't have to work, and the ability to pick and choose what I want to do. But after maybe a month of retirement, I got a phone call asking me to go down and visit Guitarra for Genco. And I got there, and after about 2 days, I said to myself, well, shit, this thing's bigger than Ocampo, which is a multi-million ounce gold district. So I took that over. We immediately got some funding and launched into a very large exploration program. I think we drilled around 85,000 meters in the course of 2 years. Really expanded the resource and reserve base. When I took the place over, it basically had no developed reserves. It was kind of struggling along hand to mouth. So that ended up being went from $1 a share to $5 a share, and then the whole thing blew up in a nasty boardroom battle. And so I left rather than being sued. I lost. But after I left, I don't think a day ever went by when I didn't consider how the heck can I get Guitarra back. And so when the opportunity presented itself, First Majestic actually came to us. I think that was because of the team. It was the same people I have working for me, same senior guys with Sierra Madre as I had at Genco. So we had all the database, we had everything. So it was a pretty easy decision to make. That's one where I had, I think we tripled the resource base. Oh, I did skip over Prime Mining. I was a founder and director and chief operating officer of Prime Mining. That was another one when Andy Bowering was the guy behind that. And when Andy asked me to join, I said, yeah, I know something about the property. And the previous owners had redone the resources and cut it down to like 600,000 ounces of gold equivalent. The guys that actually drilled it out and had spent 10 years on it and had done the previous resource estimations, this is all using the same database, they had 850,000 ounces. So I figured something's off here. And my money was on the guys who'd lived and breathed the project for 10 years, not the 3-day wonders that get these consultants. They come in, spend 3 days on the property, and then they think they know everything about the property, much more than anybody that's worked on it for 10 years. And so, I said, something's wrong. And then when I finally got a hold of the actual model and started looking at the solids that the resource was based on, I said, boy, this is the worst model I think I've ever seen in my life. And so I just sat down and redid it using the same data again, and doubled the resources again without drilling a drill hole. So, yeah, I'm an exploration geologist by training, I guess you could say, but I've learned to build mines, run mines over the course of my career.
Tell us a little bit about the exploration history at the property and mining history.
Well, the mining history, it goes back to 1552, I believe it is. The Spaniard who discovered it was a fugitive from justice. He was wanted on murder charges in Zacatecas. However, after he had made the discovery here, he showed up at the Viceroy's court, Viceroy of New Spain, and offered it to the Spanish crown. And I think the Viceroy said, for this exquisite jewel that you've presented the crown, you are absolved of all crimes. So he traded the district for his freedom, essentially. But in colonial times, it was one of the 6 largest producers in Mexico. At various points in time, it was probably the largest producer. The Spanish crown actually took direct interest in several of the mines and funded some of them, but it was quite a big producer. After the War for independence, it kind of went downhill. There wasn't the investment that people could put into it. In fact, at one point, the governor of the Estado de Mexico put a bunch of convict labor into it. This would be in I believe it was the 1840s, trying to revive the district. But it really wasn't until the 1880s when a lot of foreign investment started under Porfirio Diaz that you had English and American interests come into the district, and it underwent quite a significant revival. The Rincon mine, it was probably the biggest producer, and at times it was producing 3 million ounces of silver equivalent. But anyway, Rincon mining, they operated quite profitably up until the 1930s, following the revolution that deposed Porfirio Diaz. Investment kind of went downhill. Leftist policies, if you will, created a lot of labor unrest in Mexico, and a lot of the mines shut down during that period. So it was dormant pretty much. There was some mining, but not much. It was pretty well dormant up until the 1960s, late 60s, and that's when the Consejo Recursos, the Consejo Recursos Mineral, was the national government mining agency, if you will. They took over most of the district, and it was a national mining reserve. So it was basically unstakeable for a while. Then finally, they relinquished their holdings in the early 1990s, at which point Lewisman scooped up everything, so that the land position we have now controls the entire district, which is very unusual in Mexico. We don't have any little inliers or small minor type properties in the middle of us. And Lewisman they'd actually taken over a company that had started Guitarra into production at like 30 tons a day. Lewisman built it out to 350 tons a day, operated it from 92 until 2004, 2005, when Genco bought it. And So the rest of it's history after that.
Yes, so maybe you could tell us about the geologic. I mean, is this a low sulfidation or intermediate sulfidation system? And talk to us about.
I've seen it characterized as both low to intermediate sulfidation. We do have some base metals, not in commercial quantities, which I think is where it gets that intermediate designation. But I think it operates just like your typical epithermal low sulfur system. I mean, call it intermediate. We don't know how thick the productive horizon is at this point, but my guess is we're going to exceed 800 kilometers, or 800 meters rather, 800 meters of productive horizon, which is not that unusual for an epithermal system. The Guanajuato systems are about 800 meters. Ocampo was 800 meters.
And the current resource, that is for the Colosso mine, the Nazareno, and the Guitarra, is that?
Yeah. You've got Guitarra, Colosso, Nazareno, which are the west district. Los Angeles is a bulk tonnage area inside the Guitarra mine that actually with Genco, I had a feasibility study done on open pitting the entire Guitarra vein length over about 2.5 kilometers. It basically broke down into 4 different pits. The best one and the most cohesive one was Los Angeles, so that's included in it. And then over at the East District, we do have a resource on the Santa Ana vein. And that's running around, I think, combined indicated and inferred. It's running close to 1 million tons, a little bit over 1 million tons at about, I think it's around 170, 180 grams per ton silver equivalent. We did have some recovery issues there. We have done work now inside we've reopened a adit there, or a ramp that I had constructed during the Genco times. It was done under an exploration permit, but it's actually it's about 4 meters by 4 meters. It's a production ramp.
What the exploration potential or expansion potential is this on these particular deposits?
Well, let's go down to the East District. Mina de Agua is right here, the Santa Ana vein. It's here. The rest of this, we just have scattered drill holes through. With Genco, we'd focused on drilling out Santa Ana and extending it on out, which we were successful in doing. And then just some scattered exploration reconnaissance holes, which some of those returned, like 1.5 kilos, 1.2 kilos silver in them. So we have good indications there, but it's pretty much undrilled. What we did when we took this over from First Majestic, there'd never been a detailed mapping program done. We did 1 to 2,000 mapping program on the entire on the East District, and we're still not finished. We still have this whole area here, which is the site of the old Rincon mine, to map, and additional extensions on out this way. But in the course of doing this, we went from, historically there had been about 7 veins mapped there, and we have now delineated close to, I think it's 57 kilometers of veins over the entire district now. So it's much more, there's a lot more veins, and there's really a lot more old mines than what all the historic data indicated. So we've got 2 host rocks here. This is a metasediment, and then this is a andesite. This brown here, which also extends over most of this area, is a recent basalt that covers everything. And so, but wherever wherever there's a window, erosional window through, you get veins. So, yeah, this entire East District's underexplored, and I think in the last tech report, there's a exploration potential generated over there, which is in this range, these grades.
So what would you say? You're drilling 20 to 25,000 meters this year uh, on La Guitarra. Is that all, in the East District, or could you explain how you roughly are dividing these meters? And
Most of it's in the East District. Yeah, the East District's our main target. We have purchased a small underground rig that we're now using to help define the Nazareno and some of the deeper portions of the Guitarra vein, but that's a separate program, really, from our big exploration program. You can see there's all these parallel veins sitting in here, right? And we currently now have a MIA, which is your environmental assessment program. It basically gives us a right to mine and do whatever we want. We've converted the surface to mining, and it's in this area right here. So what we can do, just from this area alone, is just set up and drill horizontal holes. It's kind of in a little valley. Drill horizontal holes across all these veins. In fact, we just laid out a program with about, I think it's 6,000 meters between about 6 or 7 drill holes to where we'll cross all of this. This is the Los Locos crosscut, and it starts down here at right next to the creek, the little river that flows through here. It's just above that level. And these guys just blindly drilled or did this kilometer-long crosscut, and they ended up intersecting 11 veins, of which they got some reasonable production out of 3 of them. So I kind of call this our Los Locos 2 portion of the drilling program. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to come across and undercut these. This area here is the old Magdalena mine, and that was one of the most important producers back in Spanish colonial times. And they basically got watered out. They were still in ore, but they hit the water table, and they would have to have gone down and drifted an entire another adit down here at the creek level over here, which was just prohibitively expensive. There's a mine, the Mina de Agua mine. That was another one that was a big colonial producer, and they did a kilometer-long adit drainage on that in order to get it back into production. Spanish Crown financed that, and again, once they got down, they couldn't go below that level. They could mine up, but not down.
what does success look like in your drill program?
I'd like to see I'd like to see us get over 100 million ounces in resources out of the whole thing.
So this drilling, you're testing several veins, or hopefully.
I would say dozens. These are all the veins cutting through there. So yeah, each one of these holes, if we drill from here, let's say we come across like this, we'd cross 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, possibly 10 going through that way, and an equal number coming this way. This is the Quebradillas vein here. That had significant production in it off of that and that. What is that? I can't read that. These veins in here were all part of this Los Locos. There's big dumps going down on those. So yeah, I mean, it's designed to test multiple veins with each drill hole. You get more bang for your buck that way.
How deep are you drilling usually here?
These are horizontal holes, the ones from here. So they'll be coming in just below for instance, here at the Magdalena, I want to come in just below the level of the drainage tunnel that was established there. I don't want to spend $100,000 for a drill hole and hit open workings.
Yeah, no, you don't
Which
want that.
no.
So
So
how are
there's
you
a lot of
avoiding open workings then in your drilling? As
by getting our mapping, sampling, and going all through all the old records we can. We've also come up here with some. It's not a video camera. It uses some LiDAR type technology, but we're going down into these old shafts and making sure that they're stable, and then we're going to re-enter these old shafts to once you get the structural pattern figured out for the ore chutes, and there's always a structural pattern to them. And that pattern tends to repeat itself on a regular basis. The drilling that's been done along here at depth was not done from the best point, shall we say. Remember I said there's a pattern to these ore chutes? In Guitarra, it tends to be the ore chutes around 300 meters long. And this, again, will be in multiple veins, but the way that the structure worked, it opened up 3 or 4 veins, so you get production out of each one of those. But that whole zone, that ore chute zone, is about 300 meters long. Then there's about a 200 to 300 meter dead zone, and then you get another one. And we've got 4 of those coming through Guitarra. The deep holes that have been drilled were actually drilled in the projection of those dead zones. So we're now coming back in and trying to extend some of this stuff even deeper with our little rig. So there's just in-mine exploration here at Guitarra. The Nazareno has been a pleasant surprise to us. We're just starting to develop it. And again, it's open at depth, as is some of the colossal ore chutes over there. So no, there's still a lot of potential left in the district over here. This is a cross structure. The Guitarra structures run through here. Nazareno runs down into this one down here. This is undrilled, this segment, which is productive up here at the Nazareno mine. You got this big anethetic coming across. And then out in this area, there's no drilling in this, and we've had some nice high-grade surface samples and channel samples on that. I think I've now got 50 drill hole locations permitted out there. It's kind of a lower tier, but it was something that we developed during our regional mapping program. This stuff was not delineated out on any of the other maps, so we've got potential. Quite a bit of potential left in the East District.
could you explain the flow sheet and also the recoveries that you're getting from La Guitarra or from the mill?
The crushing circuit up here, when we bought the place, it was a jaw, a secondary cone crusher with a screen plant, 2-tiered screen plant, so that the undersize, as it came out of the jaw, if it was less than 3/8 or nominal 3/8, it went over to the fine ore bin. Otherwise, it recircled back into the cone crusher and then back to the screen plant again. And this was an open system, but the idea was to get nominal 3/8 coming into the fine ore bin. We have 3 active ball mills now, which gives us 5,000 tons a day. But since we're now, we've been trying to get a finer product out of this, so now we're capable of maybe, I think I've seen it as high as 560 wet tons a day. We've purchased a new used ball mill. It's good for about 600 tons a day, and it's being rehabbed. We've got the secondary cone crusher, another 3-foot head cone crusher is being installed right now. In fact, I think it's ready to be tested this week. And that'll up our crushing capacity up to 800 tons a day. So we get this 600 ton a day ball mill, and then all we have to do is run it and one of these other two big ones, which are a little over 200 tons each, and that'll get us our objective is 750 to 850 tons per day. The flotation capacity between all the cells is 1,200 tons a day. We're currently just using the Denver circuit. It's the older circuit. It's been around. It was in place when I took over Genco back in 2006, but it works fine. It's in a rougher, cleaner sequence, and then we're taking the tail from that and scavenging it over here in one of the Wemcos. So as we up the capacity there in the grinding and crushing circuit, we'll bring this total Wemco circuit online, and actually total capacity there is 1,200 tons a day. So that's good for our first expansion to 800 tons a day, which our objective is to have that in place by into the second quarter of this year. And I'd say we're well on track for that. And then to expand it to 1,200 to 1,500 tons a day, we'd have to put in a parallel crushing circuit and add another ball mill.
What could you say about the potential for recovery improvements? You're around mid 70s, sometimes a few percentages higher, but
again, if we can get a finer grind product, we'll see a couple of percent improvement. We're also we've been trying some new reagents out that has actually gotten our gold recoveries at times over 80%. And we do have especially with the Nazareno ore, there's a bit of a coarse gold, coarse-free gold over there. Yeah, we need to, we're working on improving the recoveries of that. We're looking at maybe a Falcon type concentrator at the end to try to improve those recoveries. We're also examining some leaching options on that. So yeah, we're always striving to get, I'd like to see it at 80% gold, 80% silver, but that's a work in progress. I've learned not to make any promises when it comes to metallurgy.
We won't talk so much about Del Toro, but maybe you could just quickly explain the geology there and give us an overview of the exploration potential.
Yeah, Del Toro is a carbonate replacement district. Chachuli, I never can pronounce the name of the district. It's a long Aztec name. It was discovered back in the 1550s. It was a pretty significant historic producer. The La Colorado mine of Pan American is just to the south of us there, and that's a big mine. Then there's a couple other mines in the district that are fair-sized that are north of us, kind of across the valley. Grupo Mexico has one, Peñoles has the other, and they're both bulk tonnage mines, like 3,000, 4,000 tons a day. The Del Toro property, you've got your carbonate replacement deposits. You've got essentially vein deposits, more linear, structurally controlled, but it's still in limestone, so it is kind of a replacement deposit. And then there's a good skarn potential, which is what the La Colorado mine has, a skarn. And there's never been any real deep drilling there either. First Majestic just focused solely almost on the veins, mining the veins. They had a couple of chimneys that they mined off and on, and then their largest ore body is a big manto chimney. They called it Cuerpo Trace, and it's more zinc rich than the others. So you got your lead zinc mineralization, or lead silver mineralization, and then you've got a zinc component that's run 4 or 5% zinc, but 80 grams silver. And then there's the little work that we've done now in the field, it became obvious to us that there's a copper gold zonation there too. That since Del Toro mine didn't have the capabilities of processing that, it was kind of ignored. Now it's nice. Luis Signs, he worked in the district for Teck back in the early 90s. And then Luis Jimenez, who was our director of technical services, he spent a lot of time there with Frisco on their properties. Frisco's a fair-sized landowner in the area. And in fact, the La Colorado deposit extends off onto Frisco ground. So he brings a wealth of knowledge to this whole thing. Quite frankly, I was kind of the naysayer on this, but because of the experience that the two Luises had in the district, and plus our other senior geologist, they convinced me that there was a lot of upside there that we could exploit. So it's a huge mill. It's like 2,000 tons a day for the flotation circuit, and they have a cyanide circuit that's 1,300 to 100 tons a day. So for me, the milling capacity is just too large. Every project has kind of an ideal tonnage throughput that if you try to push more through, you end up just making a mess of things, and push less through, you could make more money if you expand it some. But right now, I think the ideal size for that's somewhere around 800 tons a day for what we can see. Now, if we get into some large mantos, or especially get into the skarns, that's the bulk tonnage that's being mined by Pan American to the south, and Grupo Mexico and Peñoles to the northwest of us. So yes, you can get, you could use all that capacity, but you have to find the deposits first to do it with.
But Del Toro, so we won't speak so much about Toro, but we'll obviously we have to talk about it anyway. So you mentioned 20 million USD in cash now, then also 10 million USD in shares. The milestone payments, there are two, each 10 million USD. What are they for?
Yeah, so there's actually three. One of them is in 18 months. That's 10 million US, and that's in cash and shares. So we owe that no matter what, and that's at our discretion. The next one's in 4 years, if we hit over 100 million ounces of silver equivalent in all categories, we owe another 10 million, again in cash or shares. If we're able to get 100 million ounces there, I'd be very happy to pay that. So that's a good milestone. And then the next one is within 5 years, if we're able to produce more than 4,000 tons per day of throughput. Again, another milestone that I would be very, very happy to pay. And that would be, again, 10 million in cash or shares within a 5-year period. So it's really the upside that First Majestic saw. And I just wanted to make sure, even though they're our largest shareholder and they'll continue to be for quite a while, gives them a bit more comfort. If we're able to find what we think we hopefully could find, then, they get that back. And then, as I mentioned, there's a lot of other projects from the area, and you have some of the CRDs that needs a lot of material. And the mine is big enough to process not just what we would have here, but maybe some of the other projects as well. So it could be an opportunity to consolidate down the road. And that'll take a long time, but it gives them a bit of coverage on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, First Majestic owns a third of you. They are by far largest shareholder. What is their plan for their shareholding? Obviously, they can't really sell in the open market. They have to do block transaction if they would like to do that, as it's so much. What are they communicating to you?
Yeah, so they did that, which worked out well. So they had sold a big chunk of their position in the fall to one group out of Europe, one of the biggest mining funds, which was awesome. So they're now on a registry, and that group actually maintained their position in this last financing. So that was great. I can't say who they are because they haven't put out their, holding quarters, but hopefully in the future. So it's a really big group. They came in on private transactions. So First Majestic, I think they liked the upside that we've shown in terms of share price appreciation and the ability to execute on what we're doing. And down the road, if they wanted to lighten up their position, there's a few ways they could do it. A secondary offering, maybe through a bank or something like that down the road. Or if things go well, maybe out of our cash flows, we have options on that as well. And I think they're making a lot of money. They definitely don't need cash right now. But for them, I think it's good to hold in the books. And they've been incredible in terms of partners and in terms of information. If we needed equipment, just at La Guitarra, little things like that, they've been great. So a really strong relationship with them, and we've been fortunate to have them as shareholders. They love both these projects. Again, they're just too small, for what they're looking at and what they're doing and the valuations they're getting. But a company like us, where they have a third of it at least, and seeing it grow, I think it looks good on the balance sheet for the time being.
So then, could you give us the rationale for the acquisition of Del Toro and also what your plans are? Both immediate, but also longer term.
Yeah. So for us, the rationale is we love the project. Like, you're getting a beautiful, fully permitted 3,000 ton per day facility that shut down in 2020. So not that long ago. We see really strong exploration upside. As I mentioned, my Mexican technical team work in the area. They are the ones that actually push this project forward to us. They've been mentioning it every few months. Look at Del Toro again. Look within the area. They really like it. So when we acquired La Guitarra, we were looking for projects that were quick to production, permitted, ability to expand with strong exploration upside. And Del Toro just fit that bill beyond anything else we've seen. And having a good relationship with First Majestic and being very comfortable with the geology, as well as the area and the ability to explore, just made a lot of sense. And it fits so well within the thematic that we have in the mid-tier. It's almost like a bolt-on for us. We understand our costs in Mexico. It's in a great, safe area and a technical team that's worked within the area and at the project. It just made a lot of sense.
Also, when do you expect to close transaction?
Yeah, April-ish. So we did the financing. That was step one. Next step will be Mexican antitrust approval and also shareholder approval. So those are the next big, TSX, of course. Those are the next big milestones. And it just takes time. I'm not concerned really on any of those. Obviously, the financing risk is usually the biggest thing, and we took care of that pretty quickly. And now it's just a matter of time and working through what needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there are about, I think 18, 19 million silver equivalent ounces. Seem quite good grades, especially for Mexico. Good grades. How are you thinking around our restart in the short term? And if you could add some color on that.
Sure. So we haven't made any decision anyway. As I mentioned, the original plan is to go explore, look at some of these CRDs. We had an extra, call it 20 million that we raised. That was to go explore. Having said that, so for these prices, we could do something similar. We feel if we wanted to, the market wants it, do what we did at La Guitarra. So maybe start at real small levels, 250 tons per day, get everything operational, move that up to 5, move that up to 800 tons per day. It's probably a good size for the next little while. Especially at those grades, you're probably getting close to, 2 million ounces if you were working backwards on that. And then exploring. But again, catching up developments, your costs are going to be high. But again, at these prices, it could make a lot of sense. So it'd be something similar where we'd start small, work off our development, and just push it up to 800. And then with exploration success, maybe double that. If we could eventually get this mine to 1,600 tons per day, it's probably the right size for the time being, unless we found something quite a bit larger, which would be a good problem to have.
When do you think you will be able to, give the market some more color on your plans if you restart it, and how it will look like if you do it?
Yeah. Once we close the transaction, once we have a bit more time, not just desktop studies, but understanding where the material are, how much development we're going to need to do. The equipment's in amazing shape. Equipment also sourcing can be an issue as well. That was one of the big things at La Guitarra, why we said it was going to take us 2 years, is because equipment availability, especially in the hot market, is tough to get. But now that we have really good suppliers and really good relationships and the ability to fix older equipment, that can be accelerated. And that's why if we do decide to turn it on, we feel we could be operational in about a year after we give that time. So, if we close this in April, May, June, July, give us some time to work through the plan and make sure we're fully comfortable with it, start to develop some of those blocks, and the pricing is still great, and we decide to go ahead, about a year from then. And if not, then we'll go explore, come out with a nice big number at Del Toro, and then put into production, traditionally at a probably a higher throughput, and make sure your development is all done before you start. A little bit different than what we did at Guitarra, but your costs would be lower.
Perfect. And also, obviously, especially in regards to Mexico, permitting is a question. You have, you don't need any brand new EIA permit, but could you add some color on what permits or how is permitting is generally working out for you?
Well, we're fully permitted on both mines. So what's good about Mexico is permitting is a lot of, it's got to be validated through proper work and engineering, things like that. You don't have too many groups that are, opposed to it as you can in other jurisdictions. So these permits have been maintained incredibly well, thanks to First Majestic. Community relations are absolutely top notch. That's really something they do extraordinarily well, and environmental work as well. So as long as you're doing everything like that, permits are still valid. What's neat about Del Toro is even the explosive permit is still good to go. At Guitarra, we had to get it from scratch. I don't know, that took 3-4 months. So everything is good to go. You'd have to make sure the community's on side, little things like that. Now, drilling permits are things we would need for sure. In Mexico now, you need to give the exact coordinates of where you're drilling. Previously, you'd have your whole project and you'd say, I want 100 holes and it's going to be around here, but now you have to give proper GPS coordinates of where you're going to be drilling, and we don't know yet. So you'd have to come up with that, and then you go apply for your permits, and depending, that's kind of a 5 to 6 week process. So we've been able to permit things. We permitted a paste backfill plant. We permitted converting a wet facility to a dry stack. We've permitted other drill holes at Guitarra, so it's gone quite well in terms of the relationships and getting things moved along in Mexico. So the big permits, obviously the environmental one, those are already in place.
Awesome. And how are your local community relations?
It's amazing, especially at Guitarra. I think at Del Toro, everyone's pretty excited as well. But at Guitarra, as I mentioned, we're probably the largest employer in the region or within the areas of Mexico City. A big farming community, but now there's new restaurants, new hotels, 350 people there at any time. So these are well-paying jobs. Mining pays at least 3 times more than, say, a construction job in Mexico. So I've seen a lot of wealth kind of created in the area. I was there in December, and you're driving through the neighborhoods, and people are screaming and yelling, and they're so happy to have us there. Now it's a huge honeymoon period, and that could change at any time. But it's pretty special to see these well-paying jobs. And when the mine shut down, this is a big issue for those communities. So Guitarra shut down 2018, Del Toro 2020. So communities, when they realize that these big employers aren't operational, it hurts everyone. So everyone's really excited to turn it when they turn on, and the amount of revenues and what it does for the communities, which is great. So it's pretty cool to see, and I'm fairly certain at Del Toro they would be pretty happy to see that happen as well.
What cadence, or how are you thinking around releasing Assay results?
Yeah, good question. We're still a number of months away. Usually, previously, when you have your first, 6 to 8 is probably what you want to do, and then your next 6 to 8. So it's always good to have steady news flow all the way through, and I would expect us to do something similar to that. Because we'll do 20 holes, and then we'll do 40, then we'll do 80. But having steady news flow is pretty exciting. We cannot wait. We purchased this project, Guitarra, for exploration. That 10 million originally raised was for exploration. We used that all towards production, which worked out well. But now we finally get to go explore. So this is pretty exciting. We're underground, a lot of those old mines that I mentioned, doing sampling and things underground. So that'll happen second half of this year, and I think it's going to be pretty amazing.
Great. You have an encore project, Tepic, in Mexico. Yeah. What's your plans for that?
Yeah, we love it still. Historically, it had about 10 million ounces. Previously, it had about 50 million ounces of resource in an open pit. Looks like in Mexico, you can open pit as well. So, it's a pretty attractive project. Our original idea was consolidate the area and then, have a central production facility similar to Guitarra. Guitarra, just honestly, the exploration upside is 16 times higher in terms of the vein material at surface. So we're focusing on that. And then now Del Toro with the CRD systems that could be potentially within the area, it pushes it back even further. So we'll do something there this year. Not quite sure if it's going to be more exploration. We've had a lot of interest in the project as well. So we'll figure something out.
So what are your key capital deployment priorities for this year?
It's a lot. So 3.5 million for expansion at Guitarra phase 1. Phase 2, 5 million. That'll be over, end of 2026 through to 2027. And then 3.5 million US for exploration, La Guitarra. And then on the other side of Del Toro, we have about 20 million bucks there. And that would be for exploration. And if, that changes, we could possibly pivot and use that capital for possible restart of Del Toro.
Then a very important question is, especially in silver and gold markets, there's always some worry that companies do acquisitions that are not accretive. I'm not speaking about Del Toro, but how are you thinking around future acquisitions and M&A in general?
So I really want to build a mid-tier. So we've looked at a lot of different acquisitions. We've probably done 4 or 5 site visits from other companies and other projects, and we have some really good relationships in Mexico with some private mines and things like that. So we are looking always. But again, I would not do something unless it was very, very accretive. I've invested $2 million, and if I'm buying something with shares, that's dilutive. If I'm buying something with cash, that's dilutive. So we're very cognizant of that. I believe in M&A, and I believe in economies of scale and putting things together, getting valuations, which is important. I think the market likes that as well. So we're always looking, but we have a lot on our plate right now. We didn't do anything previously because we were so focused on La Guitarra. And once we felt we were at a point where we had the time and the ability to expand, and that's when we did that. So again, it would have to be the perfect opportunity for us to do something else, especially in the near term.
Could you summarize the catalyst for this year?
Okay, there's tons. All right, our quarters, and seeing hopefully increased production, increased revenues, bettering our costs and things like that. So those will be steady throughout the year. Obviously, news on the expansion and how that's going, moving from 500 to 750, 800, and then the drilling at La Guitarra as well in the second half of this year. Moving over to Del Toro, you'll have news on shareholder approval. If that goes through, same with the TSX approval, same with the antitrust approval. If those all come through, you'll have the close of the acquisition, and then you'll have news on our plans, what that looks like in terms of exploration, or perhaps a possibility of what that might look like to turn it on. So tons of news coming in the next little while. So pretty excited.
Excellent. So then my ultimate question is, where do you envision Sierra Madre Gold and Silver in 2 years from now?
2 years, yeah. If all goes well, I really want to be at a mid-tier silver production level. So we've ramped up La Guitarra to 12 to 1,500 tons per day. We hopefully have some great drill results in the East District. And if all goes well, Del Toro is kind of doing the same thing, maybe a year or two behind, but we'll be drilling, looking for those CRD systems, building up resources. And yeah, again, hopefully that's producing right around the same time. So building towards a mid-tier status for sure.